After about a month or so, flagship phones don't feel quite as good. They just feel a little bit different. You're always told to buy the best phone that you can afford, that'll last longer, feel faster, and somehow make daily life better. But once the honeymoon period finally wears off, what changes, and more importantly, what doesn't? When people buy flagship phones, they're often buying a promise, often from the best manufacturers in the world, like Apple and Samsung. And the promise is not really just around specs, it's around everyday life, design, and how you look to the outside world. And one of those key promises is that it is just the very best, and I don't need to worry about this device for the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years. And what that does is it's meant to remove doubt before it even exists. But what that promise comes with is a very large premium price. You expect it to feel fast, instantly responsive, smooth everywhere, being able to game and do absolutely anything that you desire with your device. You expect power to show up basically everywhere in your phone, whether that is gaming, some 4K video editing, and some multitasking with different app windows open. And early on, it does feel really, really impressive. It is really, really snappy, looks fantastic, and instantly responsive. Even the most basic actions feel completely elevated and really, really fun to use. The fear of buying a cheaper device is very real. There's fear baked into the decision itself, fear that if you buy a mid-range phone, it won't be as responsive, it won't be as dynamic, you won't be able to use it for multitasking, and general life will be harder with a mid-range phone. And these can be seen as massive compromises, and I get it, no one really wants to compromise on a device that they use every single day. It's just harder. But flagships aren't really sold as being better, they're sold as regret prevention. But here's the thing that no one really talks about. Your brain adapts incredibly quickly. And what felt amazing at the start, often you don't really even think about come 2 or 3 months later. Not because the phone got worse, it's just because your expectations got reset. It's kind of like going on a holiday. You're searching for your hotel, and on Expedia or whatever search engine you might use, you have narrowed it down to 2 or 3 different hotels, and you ultimately have to pick one. So you pick one, and then when you get on holiday, you're not really thinking about the other hotels that could have been because your expectations have just reset and you're enjoying the experience. And what's impressive often becomes invisible to us quite quickly. As I said before, our brains adapt incredibly quickly. So the smooth scrolling and the 120 hertz refresh screen, it doesn't really matter that much anymore because that's just our daily life. Fast unlocks are not that impressive anymore, it's just the way that it is. And our phone sort of just falls into the background. It's just a normal everyday device that we have to use. And that's kind of the point, but also the problem. So if speed and power stop standing out and premium then just becomes the baseline of our life, what actually separates phones after about a month or so of use? Speed has a ceiling. Once a phone is fast enough, it's generally fine. We're not going to notice that extra millisecond or two in any way, shape, or form. So does it really matter? And apps often open basically instantaneously on all phones now, while benchmarks keep on rising every single year with the new chips getting faster and smaller. But the real world feeling of those chips and those baselines, it doesn't really amount to very much at all, at least for me, the way that I look at the world. You don't experience performance via numbers, you experience it via friction, or the absence of it. And once that friction disappears, well, we really don't care that much. But battery consistency, that you notice. Battery difference is really where we as individuals and people start to notice a lot. And I'm not talking about peak on-screen time or all these different acronyms. I'm talking about just consistency. I know by the end of the day, around 8 or 9 p.m., if I've come home after a long day, my battery is not going to be dead or anywhere close to it. Can you trust your phone every single day without changing any of your habits? That's consistency. A reliable battery removes anxiety from your life. At least that's what I can tell. You stop checking battery percentages every single day and you stop anchoring points in your life to make sure that you get a quick top up. It's not very exciting, but it is transformative in the long run at least. Cameras are really important, but rarely Cameras matter in very specific moments, like holidays or those family occasions, or maybe in that low light setting. But most of the day, you're not really thinking about your camera at all. I would hazard a guess that the average person probably takes 3 to 5 pictures in any given week. And good enough is basically the default now. Most phones, basically all phones, take quite good pictures in the daytime. And social media compresses everything anyway. So if you really didn't like the look of your photo, there are a number of ways you can enhance it. And you can also add all these sort of backdrops and face filters on if you really want to. Flagships win the edges, not everyday life. Now, don't get me wrong, the camera gap does exist, but it is very situational. The biggest difference isn't power, it's predictability. Knowing how the phone will behave today, tomorrow, and next month. But flagships do reduce friction, and they do it in a number of really great ways. There's fewer hiccups, there's less second guessing, there's less moments, and you pay for that smoothness. But mid-range phones don't fail overnight. They just introduce a bit of inconsistency and compromise. A bit of lag here, some battery anxiety there, but I think what actually matters most is the camera anxiety. When you are in those rare moments that you do want to capture something and you can't because it's low light, that is really frustrating. But compromise is actually a timeline. It's not about if compromise is going to show up, it's when and how that is going to interrupt your day and the cost of that particular calculation. Now, what's interesting is that this is actually for all phones. Whether you have a flagship or not, at some point in time, your phone is going to start feeling sluggish and you're going to start feeling a bit of anxiety creep into your life. Flagships just hold that off for a little bit longer, in my opinion. So I really want to reframe the buying question. The wrong question would be, is this phone good? The better question would be, when is this phone going to start annoying me and can I deal with that? And remember, annoyance is cumulative, not instant. And this is actually where foldables break the logic, because they didn't just reduce friction of my day-to-day life, they changed how I use phones forever. So it's not really about a flagship or a mid-range phone. It's about the timeline, it's about battery anxiety, and it's about how those upgrades actually come down a notch when we actually experience it in real life. Stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to talk about how foldable phones I used to think were quite a gimmick, but changed the way I use phones forever.